The bridges of mercy. The void between stars had never seemed so peaceful. Dr. Nadia Reeves stood at the observation deck of Medical Station Hippocrates, watching the gaseous nebula of the Andromeda cluster shimmer with colors no human eye had seen until 50 years ago. The massive ring-shaped station rotated slowly, its white hull gleaming with the symbol that had followed humanity to the stars, a red caduceus against a field of white. Beautiful view, isn't it? Commander Marcus Chen joined her at the viewport, his Terran Medical Corps uniform pristine as always. Never gets old, Nadia replied, tucking a strand of graying hair behind her ear. At 48, she was one of the most respected xenobiologists in human space, having pioneered treatments for a dozen alien species. Hard to believe that just 30 years ago, we were still feared throughout this sector. Chen nodded. The Terran Medical Corps changed everything. While Earth maintained its military, it was our healers who truly transformed the galaxy's perception of humanity. The Hippocrates was one of 30 medical stations deployed across neutral territories in the Andromeda cluster, offering advanced medical care to any species in need. Where Earth's military might had once inspired terror, its healers now commanded respect. As other species conquered, humans healed. As others dominated, humans served. Dr. Reeves to xenobiology, please. Dr. Reeves to xenobiology. The station's AI announced over the comm system. Duty calls. Nadia smiled, straightening her white coat. The Vrakian delegation must have arrived. The Vrakians were among the newest species to accept human medical assistance. Tall, insectoid beings with iridescent carapaces and compound eyes, they had maintained isolation for centuries. Their request for human medical expertise had shocked the Galactic Council. The Vrakians were known for their extreme xenophobia and technological prowess. In the reception chamber, 3 Vrakian representatives stood rigidly, their translucent wings occasionally twitching. Ambassador Kuvex, their leader, stepped forward. Dr. Reeves, we appreciate your willingness to assist with our situation. The translator rendered Kvex's clicking speech into smooth English. We're honored by your trust, Ambassador, Nadia replied. The neural degradation affecting your species is precisely the kind of challenge we exist to address. Over the next few weeks, Nadia and her team worked closely with Vrakian scientists. The disease ravaging their population attacked the neural pathways unique to their species, causing progressive paralysis. With their help, Nadia's team developed a promising treatment protocol. The preliminary results are extraordinary, Kvex observed during the 3rd week. Our people had little hope before your arrival. That's why we're here, Nadia replied, studying neural scans. To build bridges between species through healing. Yes, bridges. Something in Kvex's tone made Nadia glance up, but the ambassador had already turned away. On the 42nd day of the mission, Nadia was awakened at 300 hours by emergency klaxons. The station's lighting had shifted to red, and Commander Chen's voice came through the comm system. All personnel, emergency protocols activated. This is not a drill. Security breach on levels 3 through 7. All medical staff report to emergency shelters immediately. Disoriented, Nadia pulled on her uniform and rushed into the corridor. Patients and medical staff were moving urgently toward the designated shelters. Through the windows, she caught glimpses of unfamiliar ships surrounding the station, sleek, predatory vessels with Vrakian markings. What's happening? She demanded of a passing security officer. Vrakian military forces, he replied grimly. They've disabled our communications and weapons systems. Similar attacks are happening at all our facilities in this sector. The realization struck her like physical pain. They used us. All this time. Before she could process this betrayal, an explosion rocked the station, throwing her against the wall. Through the smoke, she saw figures advancing. Vrakian soldiers in full combat gear. Secure the medical personnel, one ordered. The High Command wants them alive for study. Nadia watched in horror as her colleagues were systematically stunned and dragged away. Others who resisted were executed on the spot, their white uniforms stained crimson. She crawled into a maintenance shaft, watching through the grating as the Vrakians methodically seized the station. "The human medical database has been secured," a soldier reported. "Beginning transfer of technology and biological samples." "And the research subjects?" asked another. "Being prepared for transport. The experimentation facilities are ready." Nadia suppressed a gasp. This wasn't just an attack. It was a coordinated operation to steal human medical knowledge while capturing medical personnel for experimentation. The Vrakians had planned this from the beginning, using the neural disease as a pretext to gain access to human medical technology. For 3 days, Nadia remained hidden in the maintenance systems, watching as the Vrakians stripped the station of technology and imprisoned her colleagues. When a small Terran scout ship docked at an emergency airlock, she seized her chance, using her override codes to reach it undetected. The news reached Earth within hours. Emergency sessions of the United Earth Security Council convened beneath the ancient city of Geneva. Holographic displays showed the scale of the disaster. 13 medical stations attacked simultaneously, over 5,000 medical personnel dead or captured. Admiral Helena Rodriguez, her face etched with controlled fury, delivered the report. "The Vrakians have imprisoned approximately 2,000 medical personnel in research facilities across their territory. Our intelligence suggests they're being examined." Secretary General Martins closed his eyes briefly. "And their justification? They're claiming our medical personnel were collecting genetic data to develop bioweapons targeted at Vrakian physiology. They presented this narrative to the Galactic Council as justification for preventative defense." Dr. Elijah Okafor, science director of the TMC, slammed his fist on the table. "That's absurd. The Terran Medical Corps operates under complete transparency. All research data is publicly available. The Vrakians received complete access to our methods." "They know that," Intelligence Director Ling said quietly. "This wasn't a misunderstanding. Our analysts believe this was planned from the beginning, to gain access to our medical technology while capturing our personnel for study." Silence fell across the chamber as the implications sank in. "Send diplomatic envoys," Secretary General Martins finally ordered. "Request immediate return of our people. Make it clear there will be severe consequences otherwise." Admiral Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, I must inform you that we've received unusual requests from several military commanders." "What requests?" "They're asking for Protocol Lazarus to be activated." The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. "Absolutely not," Martins said firmly. "We are not those people anymore. We will resolve this diplomatically." 3 days later, the Vrakian response came in the form of public executions. 20 Terran doctors were broadcast live across known space as they were systematically dissected by Vrakian scientists. Their screams eventually silenced as vital organs were removed for study. The Galactic Council, traditionally quick to condemn human aggression, remained conspicuously silent. In the depths of the Security Council chamber, Secretary General Martins stared at the empty space where the transmission had played. "They've executed our diplomatic envoys as well," Director Ling reported quietly. "The Vrakian Imperator claims humans were planning to weaponize medical knowledge against their species. Some in the Galactic Council are believing them." Admiral Rodriguez stood rigidly. "Sir, conventional military response will result in significant casualties on both sides. The Vrakians have prepared for this. They've studied our tactics, our technology. They believe they understand us." Martins looked up, his eyes hollow. "They understand only half of us, Admiral." He took a deep breath. "Activate Protocol Lazarus. God help us all." Waking the sleeping giant. The facility designated as Black Site, Asclepius, hadn't officially existed for 30 years. Buried beneath the Olympus Mons on Mars, it was a relic from humanity's darker days. a reminder of what they had chosen to leave behind when the Terran Medical Corps became their face to the stars. General Sarah Catry, a woman whose official military record mentioned nothing of her actual role, stood before the cryogenic chambers as they hissed open. Frost dissipated around the first figures stirring within, men and women who had voluntarily entered suspended animation decades ago, when their particular skills were deemed too dangerous for the new peaceful era. "Welcome back to the land of the living," Catry said as the first of them stepped out, muscles already regaining coordination with unnatural speed. "I wish it were under better circumstances." Colonel Alexander Volkov, his eyes still the same steel gray despite 30 years of suspended animation, nodded grimly. "Protocol Lazarus, so the galaxy finally showed its true face." "They've taken our healers," Chatri replied simply. 5,000 medical personnel. They're dissecting them alive for study. The others had emerged now. 12 individuals total, each bearing subtle physical modifications invisible to casual observation. They were the last of the Surgical Strike Division, colloquially known as the Surgeons, a military unit created during humanity's darkest hours, when extinction seemed a real possibility. "The Vrakians," said Major Lena Hayashi, studying the intelligence feeds with unnaturally quick comprehension. "Fascinating physiology, complex neural structures, exoskeletal vulnerabilities at joint articulations." Her analysis continued, clinical and detached, as she absorbed information about their new enemy. "What's our operational mandate?" asked Captain James Rodriguez, already checking the advanced equipment being brought out of long-term storage. "Rescue our people. Recover our technology. Minimal collateral damage," Chatry replied. "And deliver a message the galaxy won't forget." Within 24 hours, 12 stealth vessels departed the solar system, each carrying a single operator and an arsenal that had been deemed too dangerous for deployment 30 years ago. These weren't the clean, white ships of the Medical Corps. These were predators, designed for speed and lethality, with hulls that absorbed sensor scans and propulsion systems that left no trace. The first indication that something had changed came when the Vrakian research facility on Thaxis Prime went silent. One moment, the facility was conducting experiments on captured human medical staff. The next, every communication system failed simultaneously. When the Vrakian military arrived to investigate, they found all their personnel incapacitated but alive, arranged in recovery positions. The human prisoners were gone, along with all research data. On every screen in the facility, a single message played on loop: "We are coming for our healers." Similar incidents occurred across 7 facilities within 12 hours. No alarms triggered, no weapons fired, no Vrakian casualties, just missing humans and wiped databases. The Vrakian High Command doubled security at remaining facilities, deploying their most advanced technology and elite forces. It made no difference. On the third day, security footage from the main research center on the Vrakian homeworld was broadcast across all Galactic Council channels. It showed a single human figure moving through the facility with impossible speed and precision, neutralizing defenses that should have been impenetrable. The figure wore no armor, carried minimal equipment, and moved with such fluid efficiency that many observers initially believed the footage was fabricated. When the Vrakian Imperator, Texan, received the encrypted message requesting his presence in his own private chambers, he was surrounded by 20 elite guards. It didn't matter. When he entered the room, a human woman sat calmly at his desk. The guards lay unconscious around her. "I could have killed them," Major Hayashi said conversationally. "I could have killed everyone in this building." "That's what you expect from us, isn't it? That's what you would have done." Tixen's mandibles clicked in agitation. "How did you get in here? This is impossible. You studied our medical technology, our healing techniques. Did you think that understanding came easily? Before we learned to heal with such skill, we first mastered the art of harm." She gestured to a datapad. "You have 6 hours to release all remaining medical personnel and return all stolen technology. After that, we stop being merciful." The liberation of captured medical personnel proceeded with surgical precision over the next 48 hours. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as human strike teams systematically dismantled Vrakian defenses without inflicting a single casualty. Weapons considered mythical were deployed with terrifying effectiveness. Nanite swarms that disabled technology without harming organic life, targeted EMP devices that could disable specific systems while leaving others intact, sensory weapons that incapacitated without permanent damage. Most disturbing to the watching galaxy was the controlled restraint. This wasn't the blind rage they had expected from humans. This was methodical, precise, a demonstration of capability rather than brutality. When Admiral Rodriguez addressed the Galactic Council 5 days after Protocol Lazarus was activated, all human medical personnel had been recovered. The Vrakian military stood down, their leadership in disarray. "We came to this galaxy as healers," Rodriguez said to the assembled representatives, "not because we lacked the capacity for war, but because we chose a different path. We buried our weapons, suspended our warriors, and offered our knowledge freely to any who needed it." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the chamber. That choice was mistaken for weakness. That kindness was exploited. That will not happen again. The Admiral's voice remained measured. The Terran Medical Corps will continue its work. Our facilities will remain unarmed. But let the events of the past week serve as a reminder. We were not always healers. We remember how to be monsters. In the aftermath, a new understanding emerged across the galaxy. Human medical stations resumed operations, continuing their mission of healing without condition. But now, these beacons of mercy were viewed differently, not as targets of opportunity, but as bridges extended from a civilization that had chosen peace despite mastering war. Dr. Nadia Reeves returned to duty aboard the rebuilt Hippocrates station 6 months later. As she stood at the viewport watching alien ships approach for treatment, Commander Chen joined her. "They look at us differently now," Chen observed. Nadia nodded. "They should. The galaxy needed to understand. Our mercy isn't weakness. It's choice." Outside the viewport, the stars continued their silent vigil over a galaxy that had learned a crucial lesson. Humans had not abandoned their capacity for war when they embraced healing. They had simply chosen to build bridges rather than walls. And woe to any who mistook that choice for vulnerability.